Okay, welcome. We already have more than 60 attendees, so I think we can slowly start. People are going to keep coming in and joining us, but in order to not lose a lot of time, we're just going to dive right in. So for those who haven't met me yet, I'm Luana. I'm the engagement manager of the UN Global Compact Network Switzerland and Liechtenstein. And I am joined today by my colleague Tabea Böglin, who is the program manager for social sustainability, ESG, reporting and regulations here at the network. Just some housekeeping rules that I would like to share with you before we go into the more content-related slides. So first of all, I just would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded, and we will also share the link to the recording as well as the presentation, so the slide deck, in a follow-up email with you. Then please just make sure you are muted and remain muted, and just unmute yourself if you wish to say something. You can always raise your hands, or then, of course, use the Slido audience Q&A that we will share in the next slide to type in your questions or to make a comment. And then I'll try to make sure to address it and to answer the question in the Q&A session in the end of the webinar. And then please activate your camera if you wish to make an intervention. And it would be also great if you could just put in your name so that we know who is actually here. Then here comes the Slido code along with the QR code that you can scan. So please make sure to either log in through slido.com using the number that you can see, or use the QR code and scan this one to use Slido whenever possible throughout this webinar for your questions, or when we have polls, for example, and the more interactive slides. Then regarding today's schedule, I would like to start off by just giving a short introduction to the UN Global Compact and our network for Switzerland and Liechtenstein. As we also have some non-participants that are joining us today, we will then move on to the requirements and the advantages of the COP. Tabea will guide you through the preparation and content of the COP. We will then also have a closer look at how to complete and submit the report from a more technical point of view. And last but not least, Tabea will present you the data visualization tool, which is accessible through the dashboard. And at the end, as I said before, I hope we will have enough time left for questions and answers. So as many of you already know, as a special initiative of the United Nations Secretary General, the UN Global Compact is a call to companies worldwide to align their operations and strategies with the 10 principles in the areas of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. The goal and the mission really is to accelerate and scale the global collective impact of businesses by upholding those 10 principles, but also by contributing to the delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals through accountable companies. And to achieve this, we do provide a range of capacity building programs, training sessions, peer learning, exchanges, and networking opportunities. Just to give you a brief overview of the global membership. So this year, the UN Global Compact is turning 25 years. And since its launch 25 years ago, many companies have joined worldwide. We are the biggest sustainability initiative with more than 24,000 businesses that have joined us, along many non-business participants as well. And what is really great about the UN Global Compact, of course, is that we really have the support of over 60 country networks worldwide that facilitate and develop and create local activities that really guide companies on aligning their operations with the 10 principles and driving substantial impact really at a more local scale and in a local context. As for our network here in Switzerland, we currently support over 370 participants through our diverse programmatic activities tailored to our Swiss context. Our membership base really reflects a good balance between large companies, but also SMEs, as you can see here on this slide. And there are many ways on how you can engage within our network. This is just a brief overview of our focus areas and main formats at this point. So as discussed, we do, of course, focus on the 10 principles and the sustainable development goals, which include a very broad range of ESG topics. So for environment, that would be climate, biodiversity, just transition. For social topics, that will be topics such as human rights, child labor, living wages, and for governance, mainly anti-corruption. But another main focus, of course, is also sustainable supply chain management and sustainability reporting throughout all of these ESG topics. And many of these, or these two topics are very crucial to many of our participants as well. And then on the bottom of the page, you can see the formats, the different formats that we actually offer and host. So a lot of events and webinars, accelerator programs, which are more in-depth training programs, peer learning groups, which are facilitated, peer exchange groups. We have a UN Global Academy, UNGC Global Online Academy, and just many tools and resources that are accessible to our participants. And the idea really is that no matter where you stand on your sustainability journey, that you can find ways to really help you advance your sustainability journey. And then last slide for this first session or section is that a little recap for 2024. We hosted around 126 activities only here in Switzerland, and we're able to engage over 3,600 attendees, of course, primarily from our participant networks. And with those events, we really try to foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, and strengthen our community's commitment to sustainability. Now moving on to understanding your requirements and the advantages of the communication on progress. I would just like to start with a question, maybe just to be a little bit more interactive at this point and to understand the level of you who are here. So if you could just give us an answer to the question how advanced your sustainability reporting is. That would be interesting for us to know at this point. Okay. Interesting. Developing advanced. Okay. Okay. Great to know. Okay, good to know. Some basic, but most of you are developing or already advanced. No leaders, so but it's good to know we have a diverse group, and maybe in the end we can also in the Q&A session share some experiences. So thank you so much for sharing. So let's move on. The communication on progress is the accountability mechanism of the UN Global Compact. It is an annual and mandatory requirement for all business participants of the UN Global Compact. And it's actually in the letter of commitment that was also signed by the highest level executive of your organization, that your organization committed to the completion of the communication on progress on a yearly basis. And it is thus a key component of your commitment to the UN Global Compact. The specific requirements for the communication on progress are regulated in the COP policy, which is really the COP guideline of the UNGC. It contains information on the objectives of the COP, the individual elements of the questionnaire, the submission deadlines, and submission procedure. Also gives us a lot of information on what exactly happens if you do not submit your COP on time, as well as the format of the report and how it should be completed. Furthermore, it explains the options for subsidiaries to report on their progress. So it's also linked on this slide. So we invite you to just have a look and always refer back to it, because most of the information also that we are going to be sharing today can be found in the COP policy. The Digital Communication on Progress report also brings you a number of benefits. On one side, of course, you can build credibility and brand value through the COP by disclosing and demonstrating your commitment to sustainability and the 10 principles. Then through the COP, you can measure your progress towards the 10 principles in a standardized way, and also demonstrate it, of course, to your stakeholders and the public in general. Then you can also gain continuous insights into current relevant topics on sustainability reporting, and also identify gaps and strengths and maybe weaknesses. And last but not least, the COP also gives you the opportunity to really to compare your progress with peers, for example, and gives you access to one of the largest sources of free, public, and comparable corporate sustainability data. Let's now take a closer look at the timeline and the deadlines. So January to March, ideally, is the preparation and data gathering phase. This is the time to really get ready by collecting the necessary information and also in aligning internally. Then April to July really marks the official submission period for business participants. The COP can be submitted anytime between the 1st of April and the 31st of July, 2025. And then from August onwards, all business participants who submitted their COP by the deadline will be listed as active on the UN Global Compact website. And those who miss the 31st July deadline will be marked as non-communicating starting in August. However, they still have the opportunity to submit their COP until the end of December 2025 to regain their active status. If a late submission is not made by the 31st of December 2025, the participant will be delisted from the UN Global Compact on January 1st, 2026. And as many of you, I believe, already know, the COP consists of two main elements. That is, one, the digital CEO statement of continued support, which is a standard text provided by the platform and has to be signed by the CEO or by a representative. Note that the CEO statement of continued support is really integrated into the platform, so it does not require a separate document or file that needs to be uploaded. And then secondly, there is the COP online questionnaire and/or the option to upload the sustainability report. So while we recommend submitting the questionnaire to all our participants, it's really worth noting at this point that you do still have the option of submitting a sustainability report through the digital platform instead of completing the COP questionnaire. And also important to note is that all COPs, including CEO statements or supporting materials or sustainability reports, will be publicly available on your participant profile on the UNGC website. We will go into more detail about those elements as well when we later in the presentation, when we talk about how to submit the report from a technical point of view. And then moving on to some frequently asked questions that we were able to gather over time. So one question that we get a lot is, if we join in 2025, do we have to submit a COP this year? And the answer is no, your company does not have to submit a COP report in 2025, and also will be able, in fact, will not be able to do so because the system will not permit it. So the first reporting year is always 1 calendar year after joining. Then if you are a subsidiary, do you have to submit a COP? And the answer is that actually, no, you don't have to. Annual COPs, submissions of parent companies, are automatically applied to all subsidiary participants linked within the Global Compact digital system. However, if you wish to submit on your own, you can do it, but you don't have to. And then another question that we get asked a lot is, what period of time should the information cover? And the answer is that companies are expected to complete the COP questionnaire using data from the most recent closed data collection process. The COP data will ideally cover a 12-month period that ended within within the 12 months prior to the submission of the COP. Okay, then moving on to preparing your COP, I will hand over to Tabea.
Thank you, Luana. So I would like to get started with a brief overview and introduction. You may have heard that the COP has been revised, so I think the slide will answer some questions regarding that, and also the question types that you can find in the communication in progress. Last year, we received some feedback from participants on what could be done to improve the COP. This feedback has been taken by the UNGC to come up with a questionnaire, a version where questions produce valuable data, where questions are not confusing or repetitive. So really, this is going to be a good update in the sense that it'll be easier for you to work with this questionnaire and accommodate all of your needs that you have previously mentioned. Background of the COP is that there are 4 mandatory sections: governance, human rights and labor, environment, and anti-corruption. This is in line with our 10 principles. You may have already noticed, for those who are familiar with the communication on progress, that the human rights and labor section are now considered to be one section. So you can see on this slide, previously we had 9 questions for human rights and 14 for labor. This has now been merged into one section with a total of 14 questions. Overall, in terms of numbers, we have 36 mandatory questions instead of previous 52 questions. So you can see it has also been shortened for you. And also 66 in total last year, and 66 in total this year, and 76 total questions for 2024. So we've reduced the questions and also the mandatory questions. One bigger change, I guess, is also that you now have the opportunity to have a section called Success Stories and Future Plans. This section essentially provides you the opportunity to highlight and showcase any successful projects that you might have had, and also for us to better understand how can we tailor our programs and offerings better for you. The question types are multiple choice questions, so that's the majority with 77%. Then we have 15% quantitative questions and 8% narrative questions. So this has more or less remained the same compared to last year. I'd also like to point out here that for the 2025 reporting year submission period, a sustainability report can still be uploaded. That is also CSRD related. They are accepted, so it does not have to be a separate report if you don't have an additional sustainability report. We accept CSRD reports. Then I would like to briefly point out what kind of steps you can take to prepare your report. So first, confirm that your CEO's continued support is there of the 10 principles of UN Global Compact. Review the questionnaire to understand what kind of questions there are and the data collection needs that exist. Use the guidebook once you've addressed the questionnaire for further support in answering the questions. Also there you can find calculation guidance and a glossary of key terms. and then start your data collection process, as this could potentially be quite lengthy, to make sure that you have everything there and can continue with the questionnaire once you're getting started. You can find further support materials also on the COP Academy page, but we'll mention more about that in the resources later. Then ensure that you have access to our UN Global Compact dashboard. We also have a user's guide. And for any additional questions that you could have, you would have to be able to refer to the questionnaire frequently asked questions that you can also find on the Academy or in the slides that we'll be sharing with you later. So there's a lot of support material when you're going through all of these tasks. This is a brief overview of the data collection. So you can see for governance, human rights and labor, environment, there are specific data points that can be collected. For example, composition of the highest governance body, you might have to know the total number of members according to age or gender. There are also options where you can select not applicable if this is relevant for your board composition. We have had some questions regarding that. For human rights and labor, you might also have to know the average gender pay gap, or for environment, scope 3 GHG emissions if you have measured those. This might serve as a good checklist for you to work with once you get started. Then moving on to content, you can see that there are different COP question categories. They generally consist of materiality, commitment, prevention, performance, response, reporting. So you'll be asked questions for example, human rights, labor, what are the material topics? Then for commitment, there will be topic-specific policies that might be relevant, the date that these have been last updated. So this will be useful to know. For prevention, certain risk management processes, involvement of stakeholders, observance of improvement and goals. So you'll, throughout the COP, as you go through the questions, you'll be seeing that these questions might be repetitive, and you'll also, it'll also become more intuitive as you go on. For performance, you also have data points that I previously mentioned, example, again, gender pay gap and GHG emissions. And for response reporting, any actions that you've taken or additional plans and goals that you might have to address certain points. Next, I would like to go through some example questions. So for materiality here, I've chosen human rights and labor section. So you can see also at the beginning, HRL, these are good abbreviations to know in which category you're currently in. This question is in the human rights labor category. So which of the following has the company identified as material and labor rights topics connected with its operations and or value chain? Here you can see the first arrow. There are some hints in the questions. For example, it's linked to GRI disclosure 3.2. There are also other relevant frameworks that will be addressed for this question. This is the specific link. And you can also see that all the options have square boxes, which means that you can select multiple topics that might be relevant to you. And at the bottom, you can see that you can also add additional current material human rights topics. So there are also narrative fields where you can input any text. Then we have the example question regarding commitment. Here you can see for environment E1, does the company have a policy commitment in relation to the following environmental topics? And here you can select one answer option per line, which is why there's a little circle. So these kind of guide you throughout the questionnaire. And here I would like to point out that these screenshots are taken from the PDF interactive document this year. This is a new feature, it's interactive. And basically when you are working with this document prior to actually working with the online platform, you're able to notice that you can select one option per line specifically because there's a circular option. On the right-hand side, you can also see that there are specific formats required. So for example, year for 2025, you would have to input 2025 in the questionnaire on the platform. This can sometimes maybe lead to errors. So these are little hints for you to follow while you're working on your COP. For prevention, I've taken a human rights and labor example. Within the reporting period, has the company engaged with potentially affected stakeholders or their legitimate representatives in relation to the following human rights and labor rights topics? This is a brief overview of the multiple options that you can select via the square boxes. and then provide any additional information again if you would like to explain and elaborate on what you have mentioned. For performance, the example is taken from governance, so G9. Please provide details regarding the company's board or highest governance body. Again, you can see the related GRI disclosures, for example, and then we also have text boxes for not applicable. You'll also be able to find other options that say unknown if this is necessary. So depending on the question that you're answering, and we will be able to accommodate you in that way if you're unaware of what the answer could be and need that option. That is definitely there. Also pay attention that you'll have to input a whole number here. So really the tips try to guide you as much as possible, but I hope this also makes it clear what you can maybe pay attention to while submitting and filling out your COP. Then we have the final question type example, which is response reporting. This one is taken from ACE. So this is anti-corruption 5.1. Here is also interesting. You can see that if a respondent answers yes in AC5, so this AC 5.1 is a dependent question, then only will this question be displayed. And you can also see in square brackets prompt AC 5.1.1 below. This will really help you understand how the questionnaire on the platform is functioning and which further questions that you need to prepare when you'll be working on the platform. There are also in square brackets on the bottom, please provide additional information. It says makes text box mandatory. So if you cannot continue on the platform, this could also be a reason why. So just pay attention that it's usually maybe to format, or if a text box is mandatory, that you might be getting stuck. Then we have some frequently asked questions that I would like to address. So for example, do SMEs have to answer the same questions as large companies? Yes, so the questionnaire is the same for both, for companies of all sizes. If a question does not seem to apply to you, please answer as best as you possibly can. And then you are also able to explain your answer in the optional text box, or also choose not applicable, so that option is always there. Then does the new COP format fulfill the requirements of the CSRD? So basically CSRD requires companies to provide a lot of detail in their report, which means that the COP does not meet all the requirements that the CSRD imposes. However, at the same time, companies subject to the reporting requirements of the CSRD will already have all the information necessary to complete our questionnaire. Then we also frequently hear, do all questions have to be answered? So yes, all questions do have to be answered, but only the mandatory questions. The COP can only be submitted successfully once the questionnaire has been completed according to those mandatory questions. And finally, how is the new communication and progress related to other reporting frameworks? So as you've previously seen, GRI has been referenced, for example. There's also sometimes the CDP and other different frameworks that are mentioned. So for questions that are linked, you can always find that in the question. And otherwise, we also recommend that you check out the communication and progress mapping, which has been developed last year, which you can find in the link on this slide, where you can compare the different frameworks and standards to the COP, and also the ESRS is also integrated into that.
All right, I'm going to continue now with more details on completing and submitting your report. So to really be able to access the COP submission and to upload the documents, you just have to sign into the participant dashboard. You can do that through the UNGC website sign-in button that you can see here on the slides. And this is where you will have to log into your account. Most of you that are here are contact points of your companies and do already have a login to do so. And then under the COP tab, you will see the complete 2025 communication on progress button that you can click on. If you cannot find this tab, it's probably because you joined this year and the system is not allowing you to report yet. should that not be the case and you cannot find this green button, then please just reach out to us and we'll look into it. Then, as we explained earlier, there are two options this year when completing the COP. I saw in the chat that there were still some questions around this, so I'm happy to repeat it. So option one consists of the CEO statement plus completing the COP questionnaire. So this is the preferred option. It's the one that we recommend as UNGC. And as I said previously, the CEO statement is really integrated in the platform and more of an electronic confirmation of permission to sign by ticking a box. This will suffice actually, and there is no need for a digital signature. If you go for this option, CEO statement plus COP questionnaire, a sustainability report and other documents can also be uploaded optionally. And then the second option that you have is really to submit the CEO statement along with only the sustainability report. And then also some additional documentation that you would like. And at this point, I would like to highlight one more time that everything that is uploaded and submitted during that process will be publicly available on your UNGC participant profile, so on the UNGC website. And then just for you to see what the CEO statement actually looks like and how to sign it. So you just have to enter the name and title of the CEO and the name of your company. Then you just confirm one of the two options. So either you are the CEO or the highest level executive, or you have permission to sign on behalf of the CEO or the highest level executive. And then if applicable, you do provide the name of the representative. So what we recommend is you can either change, for example, the CEO's role to contact person, so the CEO can access the COP through the dashboard, him or herself, and intuit him or herself, or the easier way, of course, is let a representative sign on his or her behalf. Then if your company joined in Q3 or Q4 of 2024, it will be eligible for private mode, meaning that their COP questionnaire will not be publicly available, but only accessible to UNGC employees. So the date of submission will be visible on the website. Of course, you will remain active, but there will be no link to access the actual report. If your company is eligible for private mode, the question will actually pop up along the completion of the communication on progress. And then as many users can access the COP as each participant needs. However, there are some limitations when simultaneously using the platform. So we really recommend not having simultaneous users trying to edit the questionnaire at the same time, as it will actually only save the information of the first page person that is navigating off a page. The second one will have their information lost. So we really advise against simultaneous editing to avoid losing any data. And then the COP will be available for download as PDF after submission. I think there was one question in the chat also asking whether that was possible or not. Some more frequently asked questions at this point. So can I export the completed questionnaire as an Excel Word or as an Excel or Word document? And the answer is no. It's actually not possible to export the questionnaire into an Excel or Word document. However, the completed questionnaire, as said before, can be exported as a PDF once it has been submitted. And as Sabia pointed out earlier, there is a PDF and a PDF version and an Excel version of the questionnaire that can help you in your preparation in filling in and completing the questionnaire. Then the next questions that we get a lot is, can can the questionnaire be filled out in this Excel format and then be imported into the platform? And the answer, unfortunately, is no, that this is not possible. You can really just use it to prepare yourself, but it then will have to be copy-pasted into the platform through your dashboard. And last but not least, can I make amendments to the COP after submission? So the UN Global Compact reserves the rights to implement amendments upon request on a case-by-case basis. And there are only specific types of amendments that are requested within 10 business days of submission that will be considered. And there is an updated 2025 amendment policy that is also linked here. So in case you do submit and then you feel like you would like to change something and make amendments, please reach out to us and please have a look at the amendment policy first to see whether you fulfill the requirements for an amendment. Then back to you, Tabia, who will share more on the data visualization tool.
Thank you, Luana. So I'm happy to share with you more details on the data visualization tool that was only launched a couple of months ago and give you some insight and introduction into what this looks like. So basically, this is an overview of how you can access the COP data visualization tool. There are two options. So for our participants, you can access this via participant dashboard as well as the COP website. You can see here that on our right side, this is our country network page. And if you click on COP data visualization tools on the right side, explore data, you will reach the same page as the participant dashboard overview on the bottom. For the participant dashboard, it's important once you go on COP data visualization at the top, you have three different options that you can select. 2024 COP data visualization, 2023 COP data visualization, and year-on-year YOY COP data visualization, but I will mention that briefly at the end of my presentation. Then here you have some supporting resources. You can also find these as a non-participant if you would like to know more about how the data visualization tool works. There's an introduction that you can here see, also a 2024 demo video via the dashboard, which we highly recommend to understand the layout of the tool, the introduction. If I briefly go back one slide, so you can see the image on the bottom left, the blue square. It says introduction, so this is also public. You can click here and you'll get a step-by-step kind of introduction overview, a little bit of a feel of how the data visualization tool functions. Then we also have the extended 2024 frequently asked questions. Any questions that you might have might already be answered there. And in case you have any other questions, you can of course reach out to us and we would be more than happy to support you in that. Here you can select a different question, or if you have a section of interest, and then navigate to the selected topic area. So for example, I might be interested in governance topics and governance data. So I might navigate from my participant dashboard or the COP webpage to governance. I click on governance and then will be redirected to something that might look like this. So here you can see on the bottom left, navigate to a different topic area on left side of tool. So if, let's say you change your mind, you want to actually know more about human rights topics, you can navigate to human rights and then labor. So you can see that this data is of course still based from last year where the topics were separate. Or you can click on the top, which provides you summary overview of the data for currently in topic governance. Here you can take a look at summarized performance on positive action for this topic, for example. And here on the top G2, the selected golden looking bar will show you how many submissions have been for human rights, for example, out of the total participants that have submitted. So you can work very creatively with this and also modify it, which I will get into a little bit further. So on the top, you can see the toolbar summary, individual questions, cohort comparison. If you go from summary from the last slide into individual questions, you can really go step by step, question by question to find out more of the details regarding the question that has been answered by participants from the COP questionnaire and really work with the data. This then gives you a detailed breakdown of the responses. For example, here the question is, does the company have a publicly stated commitment? Then you can see how many have answered, no, this is not a current priority, for example, or no, but we plan to submit within the next 2 years, and so on. And then work, of course, in percentages on this page. Then we also have an additional feature for the individual questions page. You can go to view numerical response data for selected questions. So on the left-hand side, you can see there are no numerical responses. That is due to the question. If you go to the right side of my slide, you can see that the individual question G11, please provide details regarding the company's, unfortunately, it's a little bit small, but please provide further details. And you can see that overall, for example, or per region, you can split this up and work with the data depending on what you want to see in the data visualization tools, and make sure that you have the show numerical toggle on if you want to use this feature. Then we also have a cohort comparison page. So this is the third option on the top toolbar, summary individual questions cohort comparison. You can compare two cohorts, for example, according to region. We have Latin America on the left side, cohort 1, and then on the right side, Asia, for example, then according to different questions that might interest you. And again, you can see that this is G2 at the top, and then the answers that were according to region were given. Finally, what I think is very, very interesting actually is that you're able to now benchmark an organization's response against those of other cohorts. And this feature is available if you have submitted a communication on progress in the past. You will be able to compare with your peers. And you can see that this will kind of look like the following on the bottom, that it will highlight what you've answered in orange. So for example, you selected this example company selected yes, and the commitment includes our own operations in the value chain, compared to 34, 22, 8%, and so on of what the other participants have answered. So this is the benchmarking feature that will be really nice to use in our data visualization tool. Finally, I mentioned the feature 2023 and also the year-over-year tools. You can select this at the beginning. That was kind of the overview. So depending on what your goal is with the information, for example, if you want to compare 2023 and 2024, then that is where you would go. You also should ideally view using our UNGC website rather than Tableau Public, but if you prefer, you can of course do that. And finally, you can also utilize the button that you can see on the box on the bottom right to export any pages that you would like to export via PDF, PNG, or PPT. And with that, I pass on to Luana.
Thank you, Tabea. So moving on to overview and resources. This slide shall just give you an overview of the most important points in terms of deadlines, elements, and the platform. I won't go into the details at this point in order to not be repetitive, but the same question keeps popping up, maybe because some people have only joined later during the presentation. So one more time so that everyone has heard it. So for this year, you still have the option to submit your sustainability report instead of completing the 2025 online questionnaire, of course, along with the CEO statement of continued support. This has been approved for this year, confirmed for this year. We don't have the information with regards to 2026 yet, whether this option or option number 2 with the sustainability report will still be available. As of next year, we are still waiting on more information from the Global Compact office in New York regarding these points at the moment. Then Also, here's just a list of all the resources that can really help you in the process of the submission of the COP. We have linked each resource to make it as easy as possible for you to actually access it. I just would like to highlight on one side the guidebook, which is a great tool to support you in this endeavor, as well as the COP office hours on the bottom of the page or on the bottom of the list, which are hosted once a month during the submission period. So these are live Q&A sessions with the global COP team. And if you run into problems or have questions, maybe even more content-related questions, you can always reach out to us and we will then coordinate with the team in New York, or you might as well just join the live sessions right away and ask your questions there. There are also a lot of resources available on the Academy under the COP Readiness Hub, which has just been launched. So, for example, the 2024 COP Digital Platform Demonstration or the 2025 Step-by-Step Submission Guide. I would highly recommend to access these two courses on the Academy that really summarize and also visualize the process easily. Okay, then just before moving to the Q&A session, because we only have 10 minutes left, now I would just like to share two more things with you. For those who haven't heard it yet, we have developed a new tool called ESG Regulations Navigator, which is a guidance to quickly understand key requirements, applicability and deadlines of current ESG regulations that may impact your businesses or your business. It actually breaks down the recommendation of the OECD due diligence guidance for responsible business conduct into actionable items and compares them to the international regulations that you can see on your right-hand side on the slides. And the aim really is that this tool can help you understand key legislative obligations, identify potential gaps that you might have in your implementation approach, and overall also reduce frustration when trying to identify actions common to several regulations. This tool is only available for our participants. We will be hosting a number of introduction and insight sessions within the next weeks and months. Next session is planned for the 15th of April. So if you haven't seen it or if you haven't registered, please access the link that we are providing on this slide, or you'll also find it on our website, of course, on the events page and on the member letter that you regularly receive. And then last but not least, we are hosting our General Assembly that will be taking place on the 3rd of June at the premises of our participant SIGPA, who will be hosting this time. The morning session will be open to participants only. However, in the afternoon, we will be having our global compact dialogue, which is open to all interested companies. There will be parallel workshops on 3 topics, on SME partnerships along the value chain, on navigating legal uncertainty with the EU Omnibus package, and also on leveraging collaboration for impactful climate action. So it's a great opportunity to meet peers, to network, to maybe get a sense of what this network is about if you're not yet a participant. So we would love to welcome you there, and be sure to mark your calendars and come to Lausanne on the 3rd of June. All right, so this is what we wanted to share with you. Let's move on maybe to the Q&A as we have exactly 10 minutes left. I saw that, let's see, okay. A lot of you have used the chat function in Zoom. Others have used the Slido deck. It's the first time we have been trying out the Slido. So let's see which one we're going to go with first. Tabia, just are there more questions from the chat maybe that we have not yet been able to answer right away? Let me see. Okay, I have one from Tulia. Is benchmarking publicly accessible or only open to individual logged-in companies regarding the data visualization tool?
Yeah, so I can step in and answer that question. This
Mm-hmm.
benchmarking specifically is available if you are logged in, which will allow you to compare. So there is no one that can see someone from the public if they go and use this data visualization tool that they can tell, okay, this company has answered this for this question. So the results are anonymized. And let's say if one answer has been answered only by one or two or three companies, and you could tell, then this will also be noted, which means that you won't be able to see who these companies are that have submitted and answered this question.
All right. Thank you, Tavia. This also should answer Ariel's question with regards to whether companies are named in the benchmarking or there will only be percentages or anonymous companies. So I think we have answered that question as well. Let me just check if we have more questions from the chat.
Otherwise, we have one more question. Maybe you want to answer this again. You already mentioned it during the session, Luana. But someone is asking if we joined in end of 2024, do we have until the end of 2025 without reporting for the first year?
If you join in 2024, actually,
Yes.
you will be asked to submit now during the submission periods from April to July for the first time. And if you do not submit until July 31st, you'll be non-communicating. You'll get the status non-communicating, but you still have the option to submit your COP until 31st of December. I hope that was clear. So if you join in 2024, 2025 will be your first year that you will be required to report. If you joined in Q3 or Q4 of 2024, you will be able to choose the private mode option. So you could choose to submit in private mode. If you are eligible for that option, you will actually be receiving or you will be asked that question during the questionnaire. So you will know. Right. I have another question from Adrian. Must the uploaded sustainability report be aligned with the CSRD? Can it be compliant with the Swiss reporting requirements?
So it must not comply with the CSRD. The reason that we mentioned that is because some companies have a CSRD report and are wondering whether this can be submitted in place, which is possible. If you are aligning with the Swiss reporting regulation, then this is also okay. Non-financial reporting, then if you are addressing, of course, the topics environment, human rights, align it with the SDGs, then this should also be acceptable for a sustainability report.
Can I only compare with peers if I submit the questionnaire? That was also a question that we got in the chat.
Indeed, you can only compare yourself if you've submitted the questionnaire. If you mean that you have not submitted the questionnaire, then you can, of course, always access the tool as someone from the public who has never submitted a questionnaire. Not sure in which direction this question is going, but that should answer that question in both ways.
All right. Then let me see now here on the slide, maybe. Oh, so I saw this question with regard to the human rights and labor tab in the dashboard. I need to go back to the chat to see who it was. I think it was, let me see.
I think, Luana, if you would just let me step in quickly, I think it might be an issue that the sustainability report was uploaded and the questionnaire was started, and that might be why you see that error. So if you want to reach out to us on an individual basis, we'll be able to help you resolve that.
Yes, that would be great, because then we can also, resolve individually, as Tobias said, as it is very specific, the question to your participant profile on the UNGC website. Then what are the advantages of uploading a COP questionnaire instead of a sustainability report? I think maybe I can just start, and Tabia, please feel free to complete my answer. But of course, well, first of all, you already see that, for example, with the data visualization tool, we have a great tool now to really be able to benchmark, to see what other companies are doing, where you stand. This you can actually only use once you have uploaded the COP questionnaire and not the sustainability report. Of course, for us as UNGC, we are always interested in receiving data with regards to the 10 principles, and the COP really gives you a great framework to really see where you stand on those 10 principles, as opposed to, of course, the sustainability report. Yes, Tabia, anything to add at this point? What would you say?
I've actually answered the question in the chat and said more or less the same. So it's definitely, being able to benchmark and also help us tailor the programs, take the advantage of comparing your progress to the peers. I think this is where the data visualization tool will really be useful to you.
Right. And then, are the submitted questionnaire and CO statement available publicly to non-UNGC members or only UNGC members? So very important, again, everything that you upload during the COP process will be publicly available. So all of our participant companies, all of our participants actually do have a participant profile, and is actually there where everything will be accessible to the public, and not only to UNGC participants.
Then we also have a question regarding pre-filling the 2025 questionnaire with the answers of 2024 questionnaires.
Yes, this, as far as I know, is not possible. I mean, I think what the person is referring to is whether we could do that from a technical point of view. Is that what the answer was about, so that they might not have to fill in everything from the start? But this is actually not feasible. So you will have to start again every year.
And indeed, here it might be useful if you've worked with the PDF last year or with the Excel to copy and paste the same answers that you submitted, or also the PDF that you download at the end. So keep in mind that to have this on reserve these documents.
Right. Can we upload our sustainability report instead of the COP? I think this we answered. How can we compare our progress against peers by comparing the submitted reports, or is there a more efficient way? So that would be through, for example, of course, comparing the submitted reports, but now we also have this data visualization tool that Tabia presented, which is a very efficient way to actually benchmark and compare with other peers and other cohorts, even from other regions and from sectors and so on and so forth.
I'll just step in here quickly. We have a question. Are companies named on the benchmark, or only percentage of companies who have answered in a region or in a sector? So depending on your filter, this can be region, this can be sector, but they are never named. So this is entirely anonymous. You can select percentage, but you can also see the numerical value out of the total participants that have submitted. So no need to worry that this is public. However, someone can go into your profile and look at your submissions as your communication and progress itself is public.
Right. Then annual reports, again, are public. Everything you upload will be publicly available. So this we've answered now quite a few times. I hope everyone now knows that everything that you upload will be publicly available. And last question, why the private mode only available to new joiners? I mean, as I said previously, this is the COP process is really the UNGC's accountability mechanism. You as a participant, you do commit to reporting annually on your progress, and it is very important to the UNGC or that there is additional transparency around the company's commitment and what they are actually doing. So the private mode is really only available to new joiners, because there is a very short deadline for them if they joined in Q3 or Q4 of the previous year. So this is why the UNGC has decided to give them this courtesy, but this is only for new joiners of Q3 and Q4 of the previous year.
And then just finally, a step in maybe the last question. There's one on EU CSRD is requiring a double materiality matrix. I assume, is this the case for the communication on progress? The double materiality is not mentioned in the questionnaire itself. However, you are, of course, always invited in the narrative boxes to add any additional information that you would like to elaborate on, if that is the case. If you would like to add something from any other perspective, you can do that there. So with that, Luana, I pass back to you.
Yes, I think we're more or less through. I just saw again that it was actually Adrian who asked the individual questions. So Adrian, please reach out to us so we can look into that. And then I think we answered more or less all of the other questions. If not, please just raise your hands or just put it into the chat, as it's already 2 minutes past 3. So if there are no other questions, I think we will end this webinar.
Thank you to
Okay,
everyone who
great.
joined.
Thank you so much for everyone who joined. If you do have questions that come up during the submission, please just reach out to me or Tabea. And of course, we will always coordinate also with the GCO COP team in New York to make sure that you get the right answers. So thank you so much.